an audible file. So you can click and hear it play the native place name in the native language, which I really appreciate. So we have the Made in Alaska program. We have our RDORs, which are economic development programs, local government assistance, and rural utility business advisors. And I am here with you under the last two there. So we do LGA and then we do the RUBA program as well. So icebreaker introduction. Can you guys give me your name, why you decided to become a planning commission member, how long you've been on the commission, and what is one thing you would like to get out of the training today? So we're going to start on this end with you, Randy.
Okay, Randy Sweet, I was asked to become a commission member, and I'm not sure how long I've been on the commission. I think it's been a few years, but I'm not exactly sure.
I think it's been 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
And then I guess I'm particularly interested in getting coaching on the meeting that we're having tomorrow in terms of having a meeting that helps engage with the public and is a fair process so that we're able to have, even if a decision isn't 100% agreed to, that people feel like they had a fair hearing of their concerns.
Wonderful. Miss Allison?
Yes, I'm Allison Ryan, fellow Ryan here. I decided to become a member because they were in dire need of members for the commission, and I had an interest based on my past work, planning and with the Forest Service federal agency. Thought it could be somewhat helpful. I've been on since probably 5 years or something. It's like, wow, time flies. Although the commission, we haven't met, there's a lot of breaks.
Yeah, I think you guys did go through a period where there wasn't quorum.
Yeah, it was a quorum. Yeah, that's right. Henry. Or you, yeah. We were struggling. Like to get out of the training today, just make sure. I guess I'm doing my duties as a commissioner correctly, not overstepping authorities, and understand the processes better.
Okay.
Henry?
Mr. Henry.
Turn on your mic.
Been a commission member for 2 years and just want to do something for the community, maybe get a little experience.
Okay. Wonderful. Anything specific you're looking to learn today?
I don't know.
Okay.
Push that button. It'll go red. Yeah, there you go.
Stephanie Blanchard. I just became a member, and I feel like this is a committee that actually gets things done around town, and I just want to see Seldovia grow and progress, and that's basically why I'm interested in being a part of it. And I'm brand new, so out of this training, I'd like to just learn the process of how decisions are made and just inform myself on that process and getting to know what I need to know to be an effective member. So
Wonderful. Mr. Roger.
My name is Roger Forsberg. I became a member because they were kind of low on personnel, just like we always seem to be. I've been here since the early 1900s. And what do we want to get out of today? Just more clarification about what our duties are and what we can get done.
Wonderful. Or I can take the mouse, either one. All right, so topics covered for today. We already went over the DCRA office. We're going to cover commission duties and roles, how to be effective, ethics and conflict of interest, and then OMA and parliamentary procedure. And so for some of you, it may be a review for some things. And then Stephanie, this will be new info for you. So We do have a newly updated October 2021 Planning Commission handbook. Unfortunately, when I was in my office early Monday morning before I caught a plane, I grabbed you guys copies of the 2012 one because the 2021 one was not at the top of the thing. So if you guys need a new handbook, I can always have some sent down here. And this is also available online. So we have a local government resource desk that will cover planning and land use resources. So there's the commerce.alaska.gov for the DCRA. It's really easy to just Google DCRA Alaska Planning Commission, and then you guys will get right to that page. And then our local government resource desk covers all kinds of other municipal topics, everything from elections to utility billing. So if you guys ever are looking or doing some research, feel free to pop over there. So broadly, your duties are to serve the public in your community, follow your municipal code and your regulations, participate in all the issues that come before the Planning Commission, consider all the viewpoints, and focus on policy, not politics. So, and as Randy was talking about earlier, maintain civility and respect. So planning commission issues can get really heated sometimes, even more so than issues with municipal code, because this deals with people's lives and often their livelihoods and their properties, you know, and how they live their day-to-day life. So that they can get pretty excitable sometimes. So specifically, you guys need to be familiar with the city's comprehensive plan. You need to know who the plating authority, which for you guys, it is the Kenai Peninsula Borough is the plating authority. But in deference to the city of Seldovia and the Planning Commission, they ask for your opinions on replats that happen in or around the city.
And we will have one of those on our agenda tomorrow for the Outside Beach Road.
Need to be familiar with your land use regulations, your zoning code, how to rezone property, which is something we're going to talk about today, and you guys have been talking about. What a variance is and when you guys should grant one or not grant one. How the city handles land acquisition and disposal. Anything about administrative appeals, and under your code, that's going to go to your city council. Capital improvements and weighing in on those capital improvements for the city council each year that the budget is set, and your long-term capital plan. Your planning budget, if you have one. Nope. Okay. No planning budget. And a planning department work program if you guys have one, or a schedule. I've seen planning commissions before take their capital improvement plan and kind of turn it into a work program. And that seems to help in a community keep those projects moving forward. How to deal with public meetings and hearings, which we will deal with meetings today in this training. And how to initiate planning projects. And coordinating with the other agencies that need to be involved in those planning projects.
We're gonna talk about each of these.
We're going to talk about what?
Will we be going over each of these?
We will be going over most of these broadly, but none of them, not the public meetings and hearings. So we've got parliamentary procedure in this training and ethics and OMA. So that'll all be under public meetings and hearings. And other than that, we're going to talk about how to be effective commissioners. Once we're done with this training, which I'm going to try to kind of run through the slides pretty fast, we can sit down and have an open discussion about any of these. So you guys are an advisory role. You do not amend code in your city. You make recommendations to the regulatory authority. And the regulatory role is vested in the Seldovia City Council here. So your procedural requirements are supported by your administrative staff. So they're the ones who will draw up your legislation and schedule your public hearings and advise you on what the code says is the next step to do in any of the things you see come before you. So to be effective specifically, you need to know your community. You can go through these pretty fast. Know your regulations and procedures. So understand what the process is for a conditional use permit versus a rezone versus a variance. Know your partners. Who do you guys work with? Request and read your packets from the city office. Know the meeting agenda and what's going to come before you. So you can study, prepare, listen, contribute, specifically come to your meetings. That's the biggest one, is getting you all in the seat. Don't be a single issue member. We advise that for councils and commissions. Look at all of the issues specifically. So you'll see throughout different communities, council members or commission members get on the board or the council for one specific thing. Like they specifically don't want any alcohol in the city whatsoever. So they'll get on to deal with just that. Well, that's not fair to the community because when you're appointed by the council, you're here to support the whole of the community and not just a special interest. Debate, but don't fight. It's always okay to disagree as long as we do it respectfully. Know all the sides of the issue. And rely on facts and not opinions. And maintain good relationships with your staff, which I sat through the calmest, most collected and laid back city council meeting I've ever sat through last night with your council here in Seldovia. So I have no doubt that you guys all have good relations with your staff. Be familiar with your code and regulations. So you guys are under Title 18. Share information, but share it with the whole of the commission, and we'll talk about ex parte contact later. Ask any questions you have of the applicants through your city clerk is the correct way to do that, unless you guys are in an open meeting. All right, so the Alaska Ethics Act prohibits public officials from using positions to secure employments or contracts, from accepting, receiving, or soliciting compensation, except from the city, from using city goods for your own personal or political or financial gain, from using city goods for partisan political purposes, and from accepting gifts intended to influence your actions or your judgment. It is, because that's important. Improper use or disclosure of information. So this is out of your code right here. You don't have a conflict of interest for your planning commission specifically, but you do for the city council that references other boards and commissions. So what I've highlighted here says a municipal employee or official other than a member of the city council may not participate in an official action in which the employee or official has a substantial financial interest. And we're going to talk a little bit about what is a substantial financial interest, I believe, in the next slide. Nope. So, oh, yep, go back one. Conflict of interest. So the guiding principle for that is if you're not sure whether or not you have a conflict of interest, you declare it to the body, and then it's up to the commission to decide whether or not you have a conflict of interest. And we'll have some examples in the upcoming slides. So for the Seldovia Planning Commission, that's you, it should be 5. We have 6 on there. Keep clicking, please. So if you're voting whether to rezone a residential area to commercial and did that go away? And one member has a home in the area that's to be discussed. The member declares the potential conflict. They're like, hey, I live in this block that's going to be rezoned. And they tell the whole commission that. And then the commission decides whether or not they have a conflict of interest. So conflict of interest for a lot of places might have, or for some places has a financial cutoff to it. And that's not really recommended. So I think it's Anchorage has like $1,000. If it's gonna affect the councilman or the assembly member over $1,000 worth of income towards them or towards their assets, then they have to declare that. In smaller places, in smaller cities, actually, like you guys, where everybody's real close knit and lives close together, conflicts of interest might come up. So one of you guys could be a neighbor to something that's getting rezoned, and then you might have a conflict of interest. So you're going to just declare that to your commission, and the commission's going to decide whether or not that's going to affect you financially and whether or not that's a direct conflict. And then if it is a conflict of interest, you recuse yourself from the vote. You can still participate in the discussion, but then you're recused from the vote. So ex parte contact is when an applicant for a motion that you guys are in charge of, so that would be conditional use permit, land use map amendment, variance, nonconformities, gives you information specifically that the rest of the commission does not get. So I was planning commission chair in a city for 6 years. An adjacent property owner had petitioned the city to sell them a piece of property. There was a property developer in the city that had tried to buy that property earlier on in the last decade and was really upset that the city didn't sell it to him and that they might sell it to the adjacent property owner. Well, I was planning commission chair then. He kept calling my cell phone trying to talk to me about this issue. That was not appropriate, and that was ex parte contact. Unfortunately, I had to actually block him on my cell phone so that he couldn't call me and keep talking to me about this, because he was giving me information that the rest of the commission didn't have. And with that information, he was trying to sway my vote. And so that was unfair to the rest of my commission. So I told them in the next meeting that we all had what he had tried to talk to me about and shared all of that information with them. So this is a small town. If you're in the grocery store and somebody wants to talk to you about this rezone and you get information that the rest of your commission doesn't have, you declare it in the next meeting. What I would suggest you do is say, hey, I can't really have discussions about this outside of a public meeting. Would you please come participate in the public comment process? Or here's how you submit a public comment so that it becomes part of the packet. And that's what you guys want to tell people. So, oh, yep, go ahead. Yep. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Open Meetings Act, and this is why we are broadcasting this here today. That the OMA helps ensure public participation. It mandates that all meetings of governmental bodies be open to the public. It is broadly interpreted in state statute. And who is covered by that, by the OMA? Public entities and governmental bodies. Who's not covered? Individuals, employees and staff, membership organizations, and private corporations. So when we say public entities, the board of the UAA is a public entity. Your cooperative for electric is a public entity. Things like that are under the OMA. And OMA is Open Meetings Act. The US government and native entities do not have to adhere to the OMA.
Incidentally, the Alaska State Legislature does not either.
Correct.
Wow.
Yep. So the OMA there is to protect the public's rights.
The legislature, I mean, governmental body.
You would
They
think.
accepted themselves from the state of.
Yes, yes, they did. You can click through all those, Liz, and all. So under the purpose of the OMA is to aid the governmental bodies in doing the people's business. because you guys are not here as planning commissioners just to do your bidding. You're here to listen to your community and to help guide them. The people do not yield their sovereignty to the governmental bodies.
I'm good.
They have a right to remain informed. The OMA states that the representatives don't decide what's good for the public to know or to not know. It gives the people a right to be heard, and it gives people a reasonable notice and opportunity to attend meetings and be part of the decision-making process. So what is a reasonable notice? Reasonable public notice shall be given for all meetings under AS 4462-310E. So the notice needs to have a date, time, and place, at least 24 hours notice, but there's some caveats to that. It needs to be posted in 3 public places, in print or broadcast media, whatever your community usually does.
We do not have either, so it's on our website.
That is print. And it should be consistent. So your planning commission meeting should consistently be advertised to the public at least 5, I don't know how many days do you do it? 5, yep. At least 5 days before the public hearing or the public meeting. And that needs to be done for each meeting. So some particulars under the OMA. Oh, go ahead. Yep. Oh, go back. All right. So serial communication. Serial communication is something that you want to avoid so that you don't have a violation of the Open Meetings Act. Serial communications is if Roger emails Henry and Henry responds and includes Stephanie, and Stephanie responds and includes Allison. Well, now you've got over your quorum speaking about an issue via email, and the public isn't privy to those emails. So that's a serial communication. Polling council members or polling commission members. So Roger can't call Stephanie and then Henry and then Allison and say, hey, this is how I'm going to vote on this issue at this upcoming meeting. How are you guys going to vote? You guys can't do that. Email correspondences with staff members, those are okay as long as the whole of the commission gets the same answers. So if Allison emails the public works director and is like, hey, I have questions about XYZ that goes on in this property, then that email should go back to the clerk and the clerk should disseminate it all the way across the commission so that you guys all have the same information. And then there's a good Alaska's open meetings law paper on all of the particulars of this written by Gordon J. Tans, and I'll make sure that that's available in your clerk's office. So we're going to talk briefly about executive sessions. This usually just applies to the council, but it's important to know for parliamentary procedure and general knowledge. So an executive session can only happen within a council meeting, and sometimes the decisions that you guys make might be discussed. So this is part of why we leave it in this training. So the meeting must begin, and an executive session must begin and end in a public meeting. And during the executive session, the public is temporarily excluded due to the subject matter. No action can be taken during the executive session, and only certain topics may be discussed, which are on the next slide. So you can discuss something that's going to have adverse financial impact for the city, something that is going to affect the reputation of and character of a person, although in that case, that person must always be allowed to request that that discussion happens in an open meeting and not an executive session. They may discuss matters that are required to be confidential and confidential records, and they can go into an executive session to get attorney advice. So we've got 4 types of meetings: a regular meeting, which happens once a month per your code; special meetings, which are called anything that is not a regular meeting is a special meeting. So an emergency meeting is a type of special meeting that could be called with less than 24 hours notice if all the members agree in writing. And then there's work sessions, and this training counts as a work session because we're not discussing any official actions and no actions will be taken. All right.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
When we were talking about setting up the public hearing, I believe our practice is somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to so days if we have a public hearing to make sure that people are noticed. And so that's how it was determined to have this meeting tomorrow. So is it, I mean, that's a minimum requirement, but is it customary to have more time so that people are noticed?
It actually depends on the issue, and I'm glad you asked that. So reasonable at OMA minimum standards is 5 days. Consistent for Seldovia would be 20 days, if that's what you usually do for your public hearings.
But
But
do for mailing out when we have
Okay.
to mail out notices to neighbors.
if it was a big issue, like half of the city was getting rezoned, or you were annexing in land or anything like that, then it could be a longer notification be required. And this has been challenged at the state level. There was a city who decided something about the school redistricting while everybody was out fishing one summer.
Oh,
And the folks that were not happy about it took it to court, and the court was like, yeah, that did not provide
right.
your community reasonable notice for such a big issue. Yeah. All right. So there's some text from the Open Meetings Act. All meetings of a governmental body of a public entity of the state are open to the public. That, yep, I think we got to repeat. I'm sorry, you guys. Yeah, just keep clicking, Liz. Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna go back one. So there's two different types of meetings: policy making meetings and advisory only meetings. So policy making meeting is a gathering of a majority of the governing body where matter upon which that body is empowered to act is considered collectively by the members. And advisory only meetings, a gathering of members of a governing body where the purpose is considering a matter to advise and upon which the governmental body is empowered to act. So the council has policy making meetings and the commission has advisory only meetings. OMA aids in the people's business. We went through this slide earlier. And this one. All right. So parliamentary procedure. Why bother? It gives you guys a structure for debate. It makes sure that one thing at a time is considered. It makes the forum for discussion fair and impartial, and it protects the will of the majority as well as the rights of the minority to be heard. So Roberts, did you guys adopt Robert's Rules of Order in your code? Okay. Yep. So we use Robert's Rules of Order. And it's all about the motions for Robert's Rule of Order. How they're made, how they're disposed of, the types of motions, the relationship between different types of motions. We're going to talk about types of motions. So a motion is a proposal that the group takes certain actions. And we've classified them into 4 different types. A main motion, a subsidiary motion, a privilege motion, and an incidental motion. So main motion. A main motion brings business before the council or the commission. Like a motion to consider a new law, a motion to adopt a resolution, a motion to amend the city code. So before you guys discuss any item, a motion has to be made on it. So before the council discusses a resolution, they say, I make a motion to approve resolution 2505. And then when somebody seconds that, that means that there's at least 2 people on the council who want to discuss this, and then it can be discussed. For a subsidiary motion, it modifies or disposes of the main motion. So it could be a motion to amend the main motion, a motion to postpone to a time certain, or a motion to lay on the table, or to refer it to a committee. A privileged motion deals with matters of immediate importance. A motion to adjourn, a motion to take a recess, a motion to call for orders of the day, or a motion to raise a question of privilege. And incidental motions deal with questions of procedure and are unrelated to the topics before the assembly or the council commission. So a motion to rise to a point of order, motion to rise to a parliamentary inquiry, a motion to withdraw another motion, or a motion to suspend the rules. So I'm going to give some examples. Once you click.
It's easy right now.
Yeah. Order of precedence. So if we made a motion to eat ice cream, that is a main motion. If we made a motion to amend the main motion and specify chocolate ice cream, that is a subsidiary motion. If we made a motion to adjourn for lunch, that is a privilege motion. And it did not give us an incidental on that one. That's okay. So to make a motion, you say, you seek recognition from the chair. Mr. Chairman. The members recognized by the chair. The chair says, okay, Stephanie, go ahead. And now Stephanie has the floor. Then Stephanie's going to make a motion. I move to eat ice cream. Roger's going to second that motion. I second the motion to eat ice cream. The chair restates the motion to the body. Motion to eat, there's a motion on the floor to eat ice cream. Is there any discussion? The council debates the motion. So you talk about whether or not ice cream is delicious or appropriate at this time, or somebody's lactose intolerant. And then the council is going to vote on the motion, or in this case, the commission. And the chair will announce the result. The motion is carried. We are now going to eat ice cream. For ice cream?
You didn't bring any ice cream.
And the ice cream place is closed now.
Oh,
Thick.
so there's a few particulars like raise a question of privilege, suspend the rules, point of order, or addressing the chair. Questions relating to the rights and privileges of the assembly or an individual. That includes matters of comfort, amplification, or safety. If Henry couldn't hear, he could say, hey, raise a question of privilege. I can't hear this meeting. Could somebody turn up the speakers? Or this room is too hot or cold. It could be a matter of urgency. I can't imagine how that's going to come up here, but it could.
There's a house fire.
Yeah, exactly. Then you're just going to adjourn. So for point of order, if you guys, to correct a breach in the rules, this usually happens when a body gets completely off topic. Somebody will call point of order. It's a tool for ensuring the rules and laws are being followed, both parliamentary and otherwise. And it does not end a debate, but brings the debate into accordance with the parliamentary procedure. So if you guys get way off topic and somebody calls point of order, that doesn't mean that the debate has to end and you have to vote on that question that's on the table right now or on the floor. It just means that we're going to bring things back to where they should be, which is discussing whatever's on the floor. Do you have a question?
Yes, that's all you do. You say, I got a point of order.
Yeah.
Raise your hand.
Yeah.
Same with the other one. There's one for that.
Yeah, the privilege motions.
Privilege stuff.
Yes, the privilege motions. If it's, you just ask for the floor from the chairman. You raise your hand and you're like, Mr. Chairman, I need a recess. And then everybody votes on whether or not to take a recess. So earlier when we were discussing the planning commission agenda versus the city council agenda, you guys can suspend the rules and change who speaks when on your agenda. And that has to be done by a decision of the whole body. So if you had multiple speakers up, but you knew one needed to catch a ferry or one had small children at home, they were at the end of the list, you wanted to bump them to the beginning of the list, you can make a motion to, in this case, you would say amend the agenda. But because that's not bringing an actionable item like a piece of legislation before the body, it falls under suspending the rules because you're going to change what the rules are right now. Or if you have a rule that says that you can only debate things until 10 p.m., but you're really on a roll and you want to finish this discussion, you guys could make a motion to extend the debate or the meeting until 11 p.m. And that would also be under suspending the rules. All right, so members address the chair directly, Mr. Chairman or Madam Chairman. Who is your planning commission chair?
Randy.
Okay, Randy. So Madam Chairman, members may speak after the chair has assigned them the floor and recognize them. And this ensures that there's only one person speaking at a time and everybody has an opportunity to speak. And a good rule of thumb for that during a debate, when a piece of legislation comes up and you guys are discussing it, everybody gets to speak once before somebody gets to speak a second time. And that really helps make sure that everybody's heard.
And then is there a typical time frame for someone to speak?
Not necessarily for the commission or the council, but you as the chairperson are not going to want to let one commission member opine for 5 minutes and only give 90 seconds to the other one.
And then for public comment, it's.
In your code, 3 minutes? Is it in your
I
code?
don't know. Well, we have adopted Robert's rules, and is that part of Robert's rules?
No.
Or no, I don't know.
Or planning commission bylaws, one of the two. It should be. Yeah, we'll give this a minute to.
We tend to have the public kind of interject. That was kind of that I had about.
Interjecting when the commission is speaking.
Again, like, before I speak, I'm supposed to say, Madam Chair, may I speak? Is that?
Mhm.
I never do that. But I'm supposed to do it.
Yep, you're supposed to.
And can we like say, we'll suspend the rules, let's not use these Robert's rules of order that are so cumbersome and it's just, I don't know.
I've seen that happen for specific purposes, but the point of a meeting is to conduct business and get business done, right? And so Robert's Rules of Orders are really helpful for that because they give everybody a structure to work on. It makes sure that the minority gets to speak, the will of the majority is carried out, and really that whole one person speaking at a time thing helps so much. Then people aren't talking over each other. That's the point of getting the recognition of the chair, and the point of having a chairman is so you have somebody in control of the meeting and keeping everybody else on track.
So I believe that, is there like a Robert's rules sort of,
Book for dummies.
no.
I was going to say, I have one. I'll give you a
No,
copy.
it was more like I forget, it seemed like we have like a sort of de-escalated Robert's rules, and I don't, because I think that that's done in our community.
Yeah, so we
And-
have kind of we modify our Robert's rules a little bit,
Okay.
so. in our agendas, and I don't know if this is what you're referring to, we have discussion in the commission without having a motion on the table,
Okay,
and we do our motion at the end.
okay,
And that has been something that Seldovia has historically done.
okay.
And so it's kind of a modification
Yep.
of that.
That is up to the body.
Cause it seems like we're structured, but we're not as structured as Robert's rules, and it seems to be effective for our purposes, so
Okay,
it's.
Yeah.
And maybe
Yeah.
you'll see.
yeah, I'll be
you'll
here,
see
I'll be
that
here tomorrow.
and
Yep.
See, and then if you have advice for us, that would be helpful, but so it's kind of like finding that place where it's
Mhm.
effective
Yeah.
and not, and doesn't sort of,
Do you have a gavel?
no.
Oh,
we do.
You should,
Yeah.
you should have the gavel, and here's why. Because when somebody is talking and talking and talking, they're
Right.
not listening to you, but you smack that gavel on the table, it gets everybody's attention.
Okay.
Do you have one? We just barely use it.
Oh.
Often our mayor is on Zoom,
Oh, okay.
but in our bylaws, it does have our how our agenda is set up.
Hmm.
And it has public presentation to commission discussion before action, that's interesting. It does not have a time frame or a time limit on it for the planning commission one. There is one for the city council.
What is the city council?
It was 3 minutes.
I would suggest you guys adhere to that as well.
They hid the gravel because they're afraid that she's gonna throw it at us.
And then also with that, if you guys can set a timer for people too, so that they can visually see,
Yeah.
that's always a good thing.
probably-
And you guys could even have a resolution to amend your bylaws and put in a time frame. Because even though you put in 3 minutes, you as the chairperson can decide to give somebody more time. Or you as a commission can decide to give somebody more time. So even though we're talking about Robert's Rules of Order, you guys are ultimately in control of this.
And like a guideline.
It is, yep. That's exactly what they're there for. All right, and that was the last slide. So now we're on to open discussion.
I had a question, what an administrative appeal is. So is this one of those duties? And I was like, what even is that?
So you guys won't see administrative appeals. The way your code is set up, if a member of the public wants to appeal a decision of the commission, the city council sits as your board of adjustment.
So like, because we're not making decisions, so there's no right to appeal. Is that what?
Well,
Yes, but you would make a decision on a variance or a
Uh-huh.
conditional use permit, and if the applicant disagreed, they would appeal that.
they would appeal that.
Appeal it to the council.
Appeal it to the council, yes. Yep, since you guys are advisory only. So let's talk about adjudicatory decisions. The term adjudicatory means you guys are going to decide on somebody's right to something. So a rezone's an adjudicatory opinion or position, an issue. So is a variance, so is a nonconformity, so is a CUP. And all that word means is that you guys are deciding on somebody's right to something. Those are the things you need to watch out for ex parte contact about. So if you guys are updating the comprehensive plan and somebody in your city wants to talk to you about that, totally okay to talk to them about that. I would still suggest you bring back the information to the rest of the commission in case they have a really good idea or, you want to bounce it off of each other. But where that ex parte contact really comes in is just with the adjudicatory decisions. Any other questions? Comments, parts of the code you want to discuss?
It helps a lot just for your clarification, or, where our rules should be or can be.
Mm-hmm. Good,
It's real.
good. I'm glad.
I guess, if no one else has any questions, then I would like to talk about and understanding that we can't talk specifics,
Mhm.
just because of the Open Meetings Act requirements, but tomorrow we will be having a meeting about an issue that is at least, I don't know if it'll be contentious. It has been in the past, but what I would like to kind of get your advice on is how to hold the meeting so that we can, the outcome is that we are prepared to make a decision because we have specific findings and
Mhm.
information from the public and from the staff, that
Mhm.
we have all this information, and then we use that to make our decisions based on the criteria that we have in our municipal code. And just sort of kind of from your experience, a way to do that so that the public can be engaged, the conversation can be managed, and it's, it develops the information sort of succinctly, and you can move forward to a
Mhm.
conclusion.
Yep. So a couple things, setting an expectation for how long each person is going to talk is, or can talk up to, is a really good way to help manage that discussion. Giving everybody at least that same amount of time is important. As a commissioner, I would keep a blank sheet of paper and I would make notes while people were talking. And I'd scroll down who the person was speaking and then just a few bullet point words that were going to catch my brain about what they were saying. Not letting them talk over each other and not letting anybody else in the room talk while somebody's up at the dais giving public testimony is really important. And that gavel's really handy for that, Randy.
Pull out the gavel.
Yeah.
At least we can do show and tell here.
And then, like I said, when you guys do make a decision, it just feels good to hold the gavel in your hand too. It makes you feel a little more powerful. It really does.
Especially at this meeting.
Yeah. Yep.
We're done. No.
Well, then you can shake the gavel at people if you need to. No, that's not professional advice. And then just make sure that everybody in the room has a chance to speak. So if you're, and I'm used to public hearings where we're like, okay, we're going to make a motion to open this public hearing on this discussion or on this topic. And then usually the chair says everybody has X number of minutes to talk. Who's up first? Do you guys do a sign up sheet for your public hearings?
We do not.
You do not. Okay. That's helpful too sometimes. And that's actually really helpful for the clerk because then you have written down names of people that came up to speak.
Yeah, we sign in for the meeting, but we don't have signups for.
Okay.
And so is that something we could, like for tomorrow, could we do that?
Yeah, we might wanna announce that, have you announce that for me at the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah.
It's not a normal.
It's not a normal procedure.
Okay.
Implementing that will help keep the meeting a little more steady because people will then be in order. And then what usually happens is the clerk grabs that sign up sheet, brings it to you, and then you get to call them by name up to the microphone.
We have a prior sign up for people testifying or commenting by Zoom.
Okay.
We don't have it for in person.
Okay. So then now you've got two lists. You've got your Zoom list. You've got your physical list.
Okay.
Few people on.
And then, so one of the things, so is it customary to ask people to keep their comments to factual information and not to make personal remarks about other people? Or, and the reason I'm asking is that has happened in the past, and I don't know if it's like you deal with it if it happens, or do you set an expectation of the kind of testimony that you get?
you can certainly do that. You can set an expectation. It's not something I've heard said a lot. And people tend to get up and use a lot of feelings versus facts during public testimonies often. But as the chair, you can ask the public, please keep your comments to factual and not personal opinions.
And I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword, so I
Yep.
I just wasn't sure what was effective in terms of that.
Yeah, I think it's important for you guys to also consider the feelings of people to some extent, right? Like you're going to consider and be empathetic with them, but then you guys are going to make your decisions based on the facts of the matter.
And I guess one of the things I've been thinking about is like these meetings are kind of a part of our democracy, and it's a community coming together to talk about the things that are important to each person and to get the facts out. And we want to do that in a respectful way. And I guess maybe just leaving it at that, but it's just, that's making it, just so that we want the information. We wanted to make sure that people had plenty of notice so that they knew that this was coming and that they had ample opportunity to come and provide their feedback. But we want to do that in a way that's respectful, and then to get the information so that all of the things that are related to the decision criteria in terms of how we make our decision, that we have the information to the extent that the public wants to give it, and the research that has been done. And then we can make a decision on a recommendation that is to the best of our knowledge based on all the information provided.
Yeah. And you as the chair, Randy, you can open the meeting or open the discussion and say, hey, this is the item we have to discuss. This discussion is part of our democracy in this community. We'd like to keep it respectful. And here are the criteria that the planning commission makes their decision. So please speak to these criteria.
Okay. And then we have that
You do.
in our packet. So that helps people.
And the report from administrative staff is going to go first.
Correct.
So they will have just heard that list in some way too.
Right. Okay. Okay. I guess, and does anybody else on the commission have any feedback on that? Like just kind of the way that we're going to go forward tomorrow? Any advice or any thoughts on how we do this meeting tomorrow? Is that, I mean, I guess just kind of asking for folks to be respectful and then working through on those particular criteria. That sounds like a good way to go forward, and you're comfortable with that. And then we can have, however the information is developed, then we can have a discussion at either, I guess, at the meeting tomorrow. And then I think, and then we'll kind of have a sense of whether the information is right for a decision tomorrow in terms of recommendation, or for our meeting on August 7th. We'll just see. We don't know right now if we're going to have, if it will be clear to us as a commission whether to make a recommendation, whether we're ready to make a recommendation tomorrow, or we may want to take the time until the 7th and just think about it, and then come together on the 7th and make a decision.
And I would say from the clerk perspective, some of the things that I'd like to pay attention to is when people are doing public comment, that other people in the room are giving them that respect and not responding. And I think that can get informal in here sometimes, and I think that's good, but in this case, I think it would be important to make sure that people get their full
their time, and then not,
and no one
not
from the
needing
audience is
no
not
interruptions
no
or comments.
interruptions.
And so just to set that expectation
to set
at the front end, so that people understand that so that every person has the full time and
And undivided attention
Yeah.
of the commission, because there's only one speaker at a time. I really encourage you to use the gavel for that.
okay,
Especially if you haven't used it before, Randy,
right,
it'll be effective.
okay. Time to develop a new skill.
Well, yeah, you guys don't be intimidated at all by anybody in the audience. You guys are in charge of this process. And if they don't behave themselves, then your sergeant at arms is supposed to take them out. I nominate Henry.
So
I nominate Roger.
Roger, okay.
got the public, letters from the public
Hmm.
attached. And these would just be some more, like, instead of somebody speaking to us, it's the
Yep.
same, we just
Yep.
consider it, but it's not necessarily. Other people in the room might not have this, or will everybody?
It'll be in the
Yeah.
public packet.
Correct.
It'll be in the packet that's online, and emailed out. So those comments are everything that were submitted up until, I think it was Saturday was the last time they submitted something. Some of those same people will come in, are planning to come in person and speak. And there might be additional people as well.
And it is totally allowable for them to submit written comments and then come and give oral comments as well.
But like, right now, we can't talk about the subject.
Correct.
Correct.
Because it's not a open meeting.
And then,
Is there anything else that you were, because you were saying there were a few things, and so having the person have just one person at a time, being able to speak and no interruptions. Is there anything else that you were thinking about in terms of?
That was the main thing, not having it turn into a group discussion in the room,
Okay,
which sometimes it has happened, but I feel like we want to be focused on what the people who are up there are saying. And not everybody's responses to them.
You guys will set up a dais and have a microphone for the public speaker.
Usually we set up one right where this table is,
Perfect. Yeah.
and we do have the handheld, but maybe we won't
Yeah,
use them
yeah.
this time.
Well, and I mean, that sign up sheet and you reading off of that sign up sheet kind of
Right.
helps solidify that order as well.
and I think just having that expectation of respect and getting the information from every person that wants to provide it. And to give that, that it's really important. Guess we can even say we'll be a little bit more formal with how we conduct this meeting so that everybody can provide their information that they believe is important to them, and that everybody's gonna give each other the space to do that so that we can get all of the information possible.
And then I guess the other thing I would say is that for people's comments to be addressed to the commission, not to be responding to. When they.
Other people.
Not to be responding to other people. But to be addressing the commission for their own purposes, so try to think of it as kind of a good example.
Well, if somebody gets up there and starts, we'll say Fred was here and Fred had a lot of negative things to say, and then George gets up to rebut Fred's comments, you can gavel them and say, hey, this
Right.
is not a time for you to rebut something else someone said. This is a time for you to give us factual information.
And I suppose that could be something that, that what we're after is testimony, not rebuttal of
Mhm.
other people's testimony, and that's also an expectation at the front end, so that people, they may or may not, I mean.
Adhere
if
to it,
needs
but-
if it needs to be countered, then it can be, but if we just again set the expectation that the main thing is what you have, information that you have that's specific to this issue, and not rebutting other people's testimony, but to give your testimony off. And if you can address them to I guess, are we wanting them to address it to the criteria that we're using our decision making, or not necessarily? It's just, they're just giving information as they see fit.
I think it's helpful for you to let them know what your criteria is
So that,
and then let them make their
yeah,
comments.
then they can make it accordingly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nobody else.
Stephanie, are you ready for tomorrow's meeting now? It's okay. The first one's always the hardest and they'll just get easier from there.
I did city council for a couple of years, so I'm somewhat familiar. with
Okay, good. Parliamentary procedure and procedure. Yep. Well, I read through Liz's report to you guys earlier. She did a great job in lining everything out. You did. You did a good job.
Do you have any advice or just some background you could give some of us on the rezoning process at zoning and just the evaluation of the criteria in the comprehensive plan?
I read through you guys' comp plan briefly earlier, and I also read through all your zoning code briefly earlier. It's laid out pretty decently. And as far as you, so you guys want to look at, I mean, the criteria that you're given in code is really good as far as what you look at to make decisions. What you don't want to do is you don't want to spot zone anything. And your comprehensive plan really relies heavily on growing the economy as well as what happens with the waterfront district. So you know, those should be at the forefront of your mind in this decision that you guys are going to make. The other thing you guys are held to is kind of deciding what's good for the community. So you guys live here in Seldovia and are going to know that a lot better than I would, you know, whether the proposed use that's coming up is going to fit into the characteristics of that neighborhood and is going to fit into what you read in the comprehensive plan. When you guys come to a decision, though, it's really good if you can speak to that decision and say, hey, I voted to approve this because XYZ, or I voted to deny this because XYZ. And then those XYZs need to be factually based and reference your code and your comprehensive plan.
I don't know if this is too detailed with this, but the spot zoning kind of gets me because it seems like that's what we got right now. We have this little dangling thing of business separated from the rest of the business, the way, and it seems like we're in that situation and we'd be getting rid of it. So.
Well, that might play into your decision then, Allison.
Yeah.
Yep.
Even though we're not supposed to spot zone by rezoning, we're rezoning to get rid of spot zoning.
That would not be spot zoning then.
Yes. Okay.
Yep. That would be the antithesis of it.
And it would seem so, because it's like, and so spot zoning, in terms of the definition, it says a rezoning of a particular parcel of land to a zoning classification, which is significantly different from the adjoining properties.
Mhm.
And I'll
Yep.
just continue with the, and generally spot zoning involves this relatively small parcel of land. Such action has normally not been favored in the courts unless it can be shown that it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. So.
And that's why I used when I said earlier, you guys know Seldovia better and whether or not that zoning would fit into the characteristics of the neighborhood. Because you're protecting the parcels that are around it from any kind of detriment in your decision.
Anybody else have any questions about this process or anything they want explained a little bit more?
You have a dinner.
Point of order or what? Motion to adjourn? Motion, oh, yeah, motion to adjourn.
Need a second.
Do I need it? I need a second.
All right, there's no objection.
No objection?
Gavel us out.
We're adjourned.
Right.
Yeah.